The ocean was dark and wide. The waves moved slowly under the stars. A man stood on the deck of a wooden ship. His eyes were full of fire. His name was Christopher Columbus. He had one big dream, to find a new way to Asia. At that time, more than 500 years ago, people in Europe wanted to trade with Asia. They wanted gold, spices, and silk. But the way to Asia by land was long and full of danger. People had to cross hot deserts and high mountains. Many never returned. Columbus had a new idea. He believed he could reach Asia by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean. He said the world was round. He said Asia was not far. But most people laughed at him. "Foolish man," they said. "The sea is endless. You will fall off the edge of the world." But Columbus didn't stop. He knocked on many doors. He spoke to kings. He asked for ships and money. He asked again and again. For many years, no one helped him. Then, one day, in the year 1492, something changed. Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain said yes. They gave Columbus 3 ships. Their names were the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. On August 3, 1492, Columbus and his men left Spain. They sailed into the unknown. The first days were calm. The wind pushed the ships forward. The sky was blue. The men sang songs and told stories. But after many days, the sea was still empty. There was no sign of land. The sailors grew scared. They had never gone so far before. The compass acted strangely. The stars looked different. Some believed monsters lived in the ocean. Others thought they would never see home again. Whispers began. Angry voices followed. "Turn back," the men cried. "There is nothing here." Columbus stayed strong. He told them land was near. He pointed to birds flying above. He showed them small green plants floating in the water. "These things," he said, "mean land is close." But the men did not believe him. One night, when the moon was full, the men talked in low voices. Some wanted to throw Columbus into the sea. But just before they could act, something happened. A cry came from the top of the ship. "Land! Land!" The date was October 12, 1492. The men rushed to the side of the ship. In the distance, they saw a dark shape. It was land. Real land. They shouted. They hugged. They laughed and cried. Columbus had done it. He had crossed the ocean and found new land. But it was not Asia. Columbus did not know this yet. He believed he had reached islands near India. That is why he called the people he met there Indians. In fact, he had reached one of the islands in the Bahamas, in the Caribbean Sea. The people there were peaceful. They wore colorful feathers. They gave gifts to the strangers. Columbus and his men were surprised. They had never seen people like this before. They wrote about gold, parrots, and strange fruit. Columbus took notes in his diary. He believed he could bring gold and riches back to Spain. He also wanted to spread his religion. He thought it was his duty to show the people a better way. Soon, Columbus explored more islands. He visited Cuba and Hispaniola. His ship, the Santa Maria, broke on the rocks near the shore. He had to leave some men behind. He returned to Spain with only 2 ships. He took with him some gold, some plants, and a few of the island people. When Columbus returned, people were shocked. The streets filled with crowds. Bells rang in the churches. The king and queen welcomed him as a hero. They gave him more ships for a second trip. But the truth was, Columbus had not found Asia. He had found a new world. A place no one in Europe had seen before. Still, many believed he had reached the edge of the East. This was only the beginning of the story. The year was 1493. Columbus had returned to Spain a hero. He stood before King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella with gold in one hand and stories in the other. He told of strange islands, friendly people, and land full of riches. The king and queen were pleased. They wanted more. More land, more gold, more glory. They gave Columbus 17 ships for his second voyage. Not 3 like before, 17. Over 1,000 men went with him. Soldiers, priests, carpenters, farmers. They were not just explorers now. They were settlers. This time, Columbus sailed west with more power. The sea did not scare him anymore. He was ready to build something new. In late 1493, the ships reached the islands again. But something was wrong. When they returned to Hispaniola, where Columbus had left his men, the village was destroyed. The fort was burned. The men were dead. The local people, the Taino, had fought back. They were not used to Spanish rule. They did not like being forced to give gold. Some said the Spanish had stolen food, hurt women, and acted cruelly. There was no peace. Columbus was angry. He ordered revenge. Battles followed. The Spanish soldiers had armor, guns, and horses. The island people had only spears and stones. Many died. Many were taken prisoner. Some were sent back to Spain as slaves. This was not the story Columbus had told the Queen. This was not peaceful discovery. This was conquest. Still, Columbus tried to build a new town. He called it La Isabela, after the Queen. But the place was full of problems. The soil was bad. The weather was hot. People became sick. Food ran out. The men began to fight among themselves. Some even sailed back to Spain without permission. Columbus tried to control everything, but it was too much. He was not just a captain anymore, he was a leader of people, and he struggled. Back in Spain, some people began to doubt him. Where was all the gold? Where were the spices? This new land was not Asia. So what was it? But Columbus did not stop. He believed he was close. He asked for more ships. In 1498, he sailed again. This time he reached the coast of South America, what we now call Venezuela. He was the first European to see that land. There, he saw wide rivers and tall trees. The air smelled sweet. The people were kind and curious. He thought, maybe this is the real Asia. But again, it was not. When he returned to Hispaniola, he found chaos. The Spanish settlers were angry. They said Columbus was unfair. He gave jobs to his brothers. He punished people too hard. Some said he acted like a king. Others said he was cruel. Word reached Spain. The king and queen sent a man to check the truth. His name was Francisco de Bobadilla. When Bobadilla arrived, he put Columbus in chains and sent him back to Spain as a prisoner. It was a strange sight. The great explorer, now in iron shackles, sailing back on the same ocean he once crossed as a hero. But the king and queen forgave him. They removed the chains and listened to his words. They allowed him one more trip. A final voyage. In 1502, Columbus left for his fourth and last journey. He was older now. His body was tired. His eyes were weaker. But his mind still dreamed of Asia. This time, he explored the coast of Central America, places we now call Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama. He saw high mountains and wide beaches. He met new people and found more rivers and forests. But there were storms. His ship was damaged. He became stranded in Jamaica for over a year. He wrote letters. He begged for help. Finally, rescue came. He returned to Spain in 1504. Quietly. No more cheering crowds. No more golden promises. Columbus was old, sick, and almost forgotten. He died 2 years later, in 1506, in the city of Valladolid. He still believed he had reached the edges of Asia. But he had not. He had opened the door to a new world. Others would walk through that door, people like Amerigo Vespucci, who would later say, "This is not Asia. This is a new continent." The name America came from him, not Columbus. Still, Columbus's journey changed history forever. Europe would never be the same. The world would never be the same. But that is only part of the story. Because there were people living in those lands long before Columbus arrived. People with languages, art, and knowledge. The land was not empty. It was full. What happened next, the meeting of two worlds, would bring both wonder and tragedy. And that, too, is part of the truth. When Columbus died in 1506, few people cared. He died in a small house, not in a palace. He was not rich. He had no crown. His last years were quiet, full of pain and letters that no one read. But history was just beginning to speak his name. In the years after his death, more explorers crossed the ocean. They went farther. They found more lands. They brought back new fruits, new animals, and new maps. Slowly, people saw the truth: this was not Asia. It was something different. And yet, Columbus's name stayed. Some people called him a hero. They said he was brave. They said he risked everything to follow his dream. They said he opened the world. Others told a different story. They said Columbus didn't discover anything. People already lived there, millions of them. The Taino, the Arawak, the Carib, the Maya, the Aztec. These people had their own lands, cities, and stories. Columbus did not find them. He simply arrived. And after he arrived, life for those people changed forever. Many were killed in war. Others were taken as slaves. Diseases from Europe spread fast. Smallpox, measles, and flu, these were new to the native people. Their bodies had no defense. Entire villages disappeared. In some places, 90 out of 100 people died. The land became quiet. The people became fewer. Columbus had not planned this. But his voyages opened the door. Behind him came ships, soldiers, settlers, and greed. Still, in Europe, people told great stories about him. In the 1500s and 1600s, Columbus was seen as a man of God. A man who brought light to the dark lands. Priests praised him. Kings honored him. But they left out the pain. In 1792, the United States celebrated 300 years since his first voyage. A century later, in 1892, statues were built in many cities. Streets were named after him. School books called him a hero. Children learned, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But they did not learn what happened to the Taino. Only later, much later, did people start to ask deeper questions. Who gets to be a hero? What is discovery? And what is lost when only one side tells the story? In the 20th century, historians began to read the letters, the diaries, the records. They found hard truths. Columbus took people by force. He asked for gold. When the native people didn't bring enough, he punished them. He made laws that were harsh. He made promises he didn't keep. Even his own men wrote that he ruled with fear. So, was Columbus a villain? Not exactly. He was not a monster. He was a man, flawed, proud, curious, and hungry for fame. He wanted to be remembered. He wanted to go down in history. And he did. But history is not simple. It has many voices. It has many truths. Some people today want to remove his statues. They say we should not honor a man who caused so much harm. Others say we must remember him, but also tell the full story. In some places, people now celebrate Indigenous Peoples' Day instead of Columbus Day. They honor the people who were there before, those who lived, dreamed, and died when Columbus came. That is part of the story too. And still, the legend of Columbus continues. In paintings, he stands tall on a beach, holding a flag. His face looks brave. The sea is behind him. His ships rest near the shore. But the real moment was more complicated. He did not know where he was. He thought he was near China. He thought the people were simple. He did not understand their language or their life. But he saw gold. He saw land. And that was enough. He wrote, "They will make good servants. They give everything they have with love. They are gentle." In those words, we hear both beauty and danger. He saw kindness, but also weakness. He saw people, but also tools for power. That is the world he brought back to Spain. A world of wonder and wealth. A world of silence and sorrow. Today, we live in the shadow of those choices. When we eat tomatoes or corn or chocolate, we taste foods from the Americas. When we speak of the New World, we speak of what Columbus set in motion. When we think of maps, of oceans, of brave journeys, we think of him. Columbus never knew the land he reached would be named America. He never knew how large it was. He never knew how long it would take to cross it, or how many people lived there. He only knew the wind, the stars, and the pull of a dream. He was a sailor, yes. But more than that, he was a man who refused to stop. Even when others laughed. Even when the sea was empty. Even when he was wrong. And that is the heart of this story. The story of a man, a dream, and a world that would never be the same again. The sea had always called to Columbus. As a boy in Genoa, Italy, he watched ships disappear over the horizon and wondered where they went. He listened to sailors in the docks talk about far places, India, China, golden cities, and strange lands filled with wonders. That dream stayed with him all his life. But dreams don't always go the way we think. Columbus believed he had reached Asia. Until his death in 1506, he never knew he had found a land no one in Europe had seen before. He never understood that he had touched a new continent. For him, his journey had been a success. But the world saw something bigger. After Columbus, everything changed. In the years that followed, more explorers came. First the Spanish, then the Portuguese, the English, the French, the Dutch. They crossed the ocean in waves. They claimed land. They built colonies. They took gold, silver, sugar, tobacco, and people. Millions of Africans were brought to the Americas in chains. Millions of indigenous people died or were forced off their land. Languages, cultures, and entire nations disappeared. All of this began with the same small step, Columbus stepping onto an island in 1492. But history does not stand still. Today, more people are asking questions. They want the full story, not just the hero, not just the explorer, but the man and his time. Not just what was found, but also what was lost. Still, the world remembers him. In many places, you will see Columbus's name. Cities and countries have statues of him. In the United States, there is a city called Columbus. There is also a Columbus Day, first made a national holiday in 1937. For years, it was a day to honor Italian Americans and the spirit of discovery. But times change. Many people now say that we should not celebrate Columbus, but instead honor the native people who were already here. People who built temples, grew corn and beans, carved great cities from stone. People who had their own science, art, music, and stories. People who were free, until the ships came. In some cities, Columbus Day is now called Indigenous Peoples Day. It is not about forgetting Columbus. It is about remembering everyone else. Because the truth is not only on one side. Columbus was brave. He sailed into the unknown. He risked his life for a dream. Without him, the world would not be the same. But he was also human. He made mistakes. He hurt people. He believed in things we now know were wrong. We can say both things. We can tell both stories. We can hold the full picture in our hands, even if it feels heavy. There are also many myths about Columbus. Some say he proved the earth was round. But this is not true. Many people in Europe already knew the earth was round. Even sailors believed it. The idea that people thought the world was flat is a story told much later, not from Columbus's time. Others say he discovered America. But that is not fully true either. People already lived there. And even from Europe, other people came before him. The Vikings, led by Leif Erikson, reached North America almost 500 years earlier. Around the year 1000, they landed in what is now Canada. But they did not stay. Their journeys were not known to most of Europe. Columbus's trip was different. His voyage started something new. It was written down. It was shared. It opened a door, and the world ran through it. That is why his name is remembered. He was not the first to find the land. He was not the first to dream of going west. But he was the first to make Europe believe it could be done. He was the match. The fire came after him. And what a fire it was. New foods crossed the ocean, potatoes, corn, tomatoes, chili peppers, chocolate, and more. Horses, pigs, wheat, and coffee went the other way. Languages mixed. People moved. Maps changed. The world became connected. Today, we live in that connected world. But it started with wind, wood, and sails. With 3 ships on an empty sea. With one man watching the stars and believing in something no one else could see. Columbus never found Asia. But he found something else, something much bigger. And even though he did not understand it fully, he changed the path of history. He started a new chapter in the story of the world. A story that still continues. Thank you for listening to this story. If you liked it, write about it in the comments and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories.